And good Thursday morning. America's First News continues on this 4th of July. Happy Independence Day. New this morning, President Trump not giving up on the idea of a citizenship question for next year's census. That despite the fact that the Supreme Court blocked the question. And a House committee's filed a lawsuit in federal court seeking the president's tax returns. How is this likely to play out in court? Let's bring in our regular guest. Byron Henry joins us from time to time. He's a Dallas-Fort Worth attorney with Scheef Stone. He's also a constitutional scholar. Byron Henry, thank you for joining us. Happy Independence Day, my friend.
You too. My pleasure.
Yeah, we appreciate you joining us on this holiday. Let's first discuss President Trump's refusal to give up on that idea for the citizenship question. Now, administration officials had said that the printing process was underway without the question, but the president said in a tweet, we're absolutely moving forward with this. What is the Justice Department's role in this, as the president has told them you need to explore the options here?
Well, I think that I've often said that because Commerce is in charge of printing and doing the census, that the executive branch is still in control of the process of how to go about getting the census question or the citizenship question on the census. The June 30 was the deadline that was put forth by the Supreme Court for printing the forms. But of course, the government could always, continue the process in court, stop printing and reprint, because the actual deadline, the hard, no looking back deadline, has also been represented in court as being in October. So because the Commerce Department is in charge of actually printing and sending this out, the president could simply continue this in court and then decide that it's worth the fight. And of course, there's also the argument that the fight could continue to get a citizenship question on the census for future censuses, even if it doesn't get on this one. So the court fight could continue, as well as Commerce's decision to see how to get a census question rubber stamped by courts going forward, if they could just provide correct reasoning for including a citizenship question based on Chief Justice Roberts' majority opinion.
And this is why President Trump, not relating to what somewhat relating to what you said, but the news yesterday, President Trump was not happy with his Commerce Secretary, Wilbur Ross. Of course, he has oversight, I would imagine, over that, and that's what he's looking to do. Well, the Supreme Court blocked that question, but they left open the possibility of reconsidering. Is that what you touched on at the end there, where they said possibly down the road it might be added?
Well, they actually blessed a citizenship question as legitimate, so long as the administrative regulations are followed and courts lightly review the reasoning and rationale. And because the reasoning and rationale wasn't sufficient, the courts basically sent it back and said you need to provide the proper reasoning and rationale if you want to include this question on the census. So technically, unless there's a deadline problem that just Commerce can't get their act together and get that done in time, they should have been anticipating this decision and been ready for something like this. But if they didn't, and they just can't, then the citizenship question is a no-go for this census. But if they could get their act together and get this done sometime in the next couple months, then they might have an opportunity to go back to court and get the citizenship question blessed by the Supreme Court, as long as they can provide the proper rationale. So that's basically, it's in Commerce's court, depending on timing and basically the political will of the president to continue the court fight.
Gotcha. A House committee filing that lawsuit in federal court seeking the president's tax returns, the House Ways and Means Committee. It says it doesn't have to explain the reasons for seeking the information. Of course, the administration defying that subpoena. Where are we headed with this, Byron?
Well, there's a couple avenues. First of all, of course, the lawsuit you've probably read, it got placed in Judge McFadden's court, which is a Trump appointee, which has ruled on behalf of the Trump administration on one previous occasion since he's been on the bench. But the main question is they went the subpoena route and the lawsuit route. I have a few issues with the lawsuit route, simply because there's a lot of case law out there in federal courts about standing of committees to parts of Congress to file lawsuits under the Constitution. It doesn't matter what the law says, because Congress can't pass a law that doesn't square with the Constitution. So filing a separate lawsuit on behalf of a congressional committee to vindicate congressional rights seems to be a problem. But the subpoena issue is a whole different story, because it's long been held constitutional for committees to have subpoena power, and that subpoena power is going to be an issue. But I do have a hard time finding that courts are going to believe that a congressional committee can get anyone's tax returns, yours, mine, political enemies, or anyone's, for no reason whatsoever. I think there's going to have to be some rationale put forward, some legitimate rationale. It's probably not much, mind you, since the law doesn't really provide for a rationale. It's probably going to be implied that there's got to be a legitimate purpose as the Trump administration has put forward. And the question is just simply wanting to see someone's tax returns, whether it's yours, mine, the president's, or anyone else, enough of a reason, a basis for Congress. And that's basically what the committee is saying in the lawsuit, is we don't have to give a reason.
I'm curious, your experience as a constitutional scholar. We've let's face it, Byron, we've had you on a lot over the past 2 to 3 years. Have you ever really seen, challenges like this in the courts against, interpretations of the Constitution, if you will, from the government as a whole? I mean, we're talking both sides here.
Well, there's a couple things to remember that, and this happened with President Obama, and I know the left would say that President Trump is stretching the bounds of presidential authority and stomping over norms, and of course President Obama's administration was sued and held into court numerous times by attorneys general and whatnot for a lot of reasons. But in a lot of ways, the Office of Legal Counsel and the Justice Department is there to protect the president's seat, not President Trump. So they are basically fighting precedent for the future of the office when it's executive privilege or the tax return issue. And so a lot of times this isn't about protecting President Trump's tax returns as much as it is making sure the lines between branches of government stay drawn so that you don't end up allowing Congress to weaponize the IRS against presidential candidates or political opponents. And so I would say, no, I haven't ever seen this, but I think because Congress is in the hands of the House, is in the hands of Democrats and President Trump, who is definitely a unique president in a lot of ways, as the battle between the House and the President Trump is probably just beginning. We're not even talking about impeachment issues yet, just simply these issues regarding the census question and all these other things seem to me you're going to get a lot of case law out of this administration on the relationship between Congress and the president, let's put it that way. And that might not be a bad thing when it comes to separation of powers. Sure.
And obviously this is going to head into 2020 as well. So, Byron, we appreciate your time as always. Thank you so much. Have a great holiday.
Anytime.
All right, that's Byron Henry. He joins us from time to time here on AFN. He's a Dallas-based attorney, also a constitutional scholar with Scheef Stone.